What is up, everyone? You know it ain't a top 5 new brews from Aeneas if we don't have a Dimir deck, so let's get into it. Alright, folks, so today we are at the #1 deck of the top 5 new brews for March of the Machine, and surprise, surprise, it's a Dimir deck, Dimir Amonkhet. And this deck is based around some milling, based around some drawing and discarding, based around some reanimation. Everything good in Dimir, you know. So yeah, let's take a look. But before we start, I really appreciate you guys last time hitting that like button. If you can do the same thing, smash that like button to help boost this channel up a little bit. Would appreciate it so much. Yeah, but without further ado, let's get into the deck. All right, so in standard, the best card, still the best card to reanimate is Atraxa. There's a few new good ones you could throw in here instead, like Croxa or I don't know, Itali or something like that. Those are all pretty good ones to reanimate. For now, we're just sticking with Atraxa. We'll see if we change that later. So this is the main reanimation target in the set. We also have Phyrexian Fleshgorger, another decent card to reanimate because it comes back as a 7/5 Menace lifelinker with the 7 mana, 7 life ward cost. And just having a big, giant lifelinker creature tends to be very good against the aggro decks in the format. You could even run that new angel, big angel, almost Baneslayer angel creature. Whatever, just some big life link creature is good for stabilizing the game, helping you to come back. And Atraxa does that with the lifelink, the flying, the vigilance, and on top of that, it draws you just like 5 or 6 cards. So it's really insane. And if you didn't remember, Atraxa mentions that it has one of each card type when it enters the battlefield. You look at the top 10 cards, and you put one of each into your hand. And that included the battle type, which is the new card type, which we do have in the deck. So you're most likely going to get at least a creature, and then you know, maybe a planeswalker, maybe a battle, maybe an instant, and maybe an artifact. So got a lot of different types, and a land, of course. So you're probably going to draw, I would say, probably about 3 cards on average whenever you get your Atraxa down. So yeah, pretty sweet. It's got a lot of good abilities as well. So that's why it's such a good target. And we have a lot of new ways to reanimate Atraxa, which is what makes this deck so special. So the first one is Archpriest of Shadows. So this is a 5 mana 4/4, has the backup ability. Backup says you put a counter on a creature, and then that creature gets all the abilities that are underneath the backup ability on this card for the end of till the end of the turn. So this creature says it has Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, pretty big, then return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, aka bring back our Atraxa. So the point of the deck is we have some early game cheap creatures that are a little bit evasive, that do some milling or things like that to get our Atraxa in our graveyard. Then turn 5, we put a backup counter on one of those creatures, swing in, hit our battle or hit the opponent, either one, and we're going to get our Atraxa back. And if the opponent kills the creature, we're okay because the next turn we still have this 4/4 Death Touch creature that does the same thing. So they have to kill both creatures to stop the reanimation. So yeah, pretty sweet. And then on top of that, we're also running the namesake card, Invasion of Amonkhet, one of the best planes in my opinion. Amonkhet says the opponent discards a card, you draw a card, and both players mill 3 cards. This is huge. This is really, really huge for enabling this deck. Not only is it card advantage for you, it's card disadvantage for the opponent. 3 mana is usually like kind of a good turn where they've played out some of their cheap stuff and their lands, so they're not expecting the discard. So sometimes hitting that discard on them can really throw off their game. And then the milling, you might even mill some of their creatures, which are good to reanimate. So that's just icing on the cake. Even if you whiff, they might not whiff, and it's gonna help you. And then it doesn't stop there. It gets even better. So besides being an enabler, it's also a payoff because the backside is Lazotep Convert, kind of like a scarab god. It says you may have Lazotep Convert enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard, except it's a 4/4 zombie in addition to its other types. So it's a 4/4, but it gets all the abilities, all the ETBs, the enter the battlefield effects of any creature in the battlefield that you choose. Sorry, in the graveyard that you choose. So yeah, because it enters as a copy, it gets the enters the battlefield effect. So you ideally want to do your Atraxa, enter as your Atraxa, but you could also enter as the Archpriest of Shadows and get the backup ability and get the Death Touch and get the reanimation ability. You can also enter as the Phyrexian Fleshgorger, and now you're a 4/4 with Menace and Lifelink and a Ward for life cost. All of that is pretty sweet. Like, you'd be happy to get that. It can enter as any of these small creatures as well, which have pretty good abilities. And maybe the opponent has a Sheoldred. You enter as a Sheoldred with Death Touch and the whole Drain 2 thing going on. So yeah, pretty sweet. So you're pretty happy to get most of the creatures in Standard because most of the creatures in Standard are just broken. So yeah, why not take one of their abilities? All right, so yeah, so we got 8 ways to basically bring back our Atraxa, and then let's look at the rest of the enablers. So 1 mana, we got Gnawing Vermin. This is 1 mana 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. Target player mills 2 cards. So probably you're going to target yourself. You're going to try to mill one of your creatures, especially the big creatures here. And then it's got a death ability when it dies. A creature you don't control gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Playing with this, it's been pretty good against the Soldiers deck and against the mono red decks because they have a lot of 2 toughness creatures. You block something with this, you put the -1/-1 on the same creature. Effectively, it kills anything with 2 toughness. Pretty good. A lot of times they can't attack in because they don't want to lose their stuff to your creatures. And that buys you some time to get to your late game. On top of that, we're running the Scorn Blade Berserker. This is another creature with backup. However, this one is pretty different. It's kind of, I want to say it's kind of like Village Rites light, like not as good as Village Rites. But because it has a body attached, we can have some advantage to that in this deck, which is why I went with this card. So in some cases, we could put the counter on the Vermin. We can swing in, maybe targeting our battle here. The opponent's like, oh, I don't want to block that and trade with that because maybe they'll kill my 3 toughness creature, or maybe they'll kill my 2 toughness and a 1 toughness creature. So it's unfavorable for them to block. And then afterwards, you can sack it and still do the -1/-1 on something and draw a card. So it's still advantageous for you. And then we also leave behind this 0/1 body, which we can, again, sack for a draw card if we want to. Or late game, maybe we've just got the 0/1 sitting on the battlefield, and the opponent's like, oh, that's a 0/1. They're not going to do anything with that. I'll just swing in and attack. And then you drop your Archpriest, you put the backup counter on the 0/1. Now you've got a 1/2 Death Toucher with the ability to reanimate a creature. So this unassuming 0/1 now becomes a reanimation. So yeah, it can be pretty sweet. So I think having that body around there is going to be pretty advantageous for you. And also the ability to choose which other creatures you buff and to sack and things like that. It's just pretty flexible, and it seems like it makes the deck work pretty well. Like, Kaito makes these unblockable tokens. You could put the 1/1 on there. Now it's an unblockable 2/2 that can let you swing into your Amonkhet, Invasion of Amonkhet, to flip it, etc., and get your Atraxa going, or something like that. Or you can sack the token if you want. If you just really need to draw, then you can do that. So pretty flexible, and I think the counter plus draw some cards effect that it gives is pretty nice. All right, in the 2 mana slots, we have Aven Heartstabber. A pretty good creature, 1/1 flying, and as long as you have 5 or more cards in your graveyard, it gets +2/+2 and Death Touch. So once you've got a few different mana values of stuff in your graveyard from milling, then it'll have +2/+2 and Death Touch. So late game, it'll be bigger. It's like a removal late game. But early game, it's a 1/1 flying that's evasive. Attack into your battles. You can put counters on it, like I just said with Scorn of Blade Berserker or Archpriest. And then when it dies, you mill 2 cards and you draw a card, which is what you want to do anyway. So you're happy to use it as a chump blocker because you're going to draw and mill. Totally fine. You're happy to like use the Scornblade Berserker's ability to sack it because you'll draw 2 cards and mill 2 cards. So win-win. So yeah, you're pretty happy no matter what happens to this creature. So it's just very flexible, and the evasiveness is very nice as well for hitting down the battles. All right, the next one, Evangel of Synthesis, another 2 mana, 2/3. Enters the battlefield, you draw and then you discard. And whenever you draw a card, 2 or more cards each turn, including your draw step draw, then it gets +1 and has Menace. So I included this one because it really kind of smooths out the deck. You needed a 2 mana creature that was a pretty good blocker, that's also evasive, that also helps you in some way with your graveyard synergy. And so the draw discard will help you when you get stuck with the tracks on your hand and you just need to get rid of it. The Menace is good for evasiveness to hit down your battle or to get in with the Archpriest. And I also like that it's 3 power with the Menace. So in some cases, you know, you could buff it with the Scornblade Berserker or the Archpriest. Now it's a 4 toughness, and you swing in and you get, 4 power is what I meant to say. And then you could swing in and flip your Amonkhet on the first time, like all 4 damage in 1 hit. So yeah, it seems pretty nice in that effect. And just the draw discard is good. And even if like that's the only thing in your graveyard when you flip the Lazotep Convert, you're not that unhappy to have a 4/4 which draws and discards and can get Menace and +1. Seems decent, right? Obviously you want Atraxa, but it's not the worst thing. All right, and then yeah, so we're also running Kaito, of course. So Kaito can draw you each turn, can trigger your Evangel, that kind of stuff. So yeah. All right, the removal of choice for this deck, go for the Throat. Just a solid removal, hits most of the scary things in the format. And we have a few other like pseudo removal with the 9 Vermin, late game with the Heartstabber, and honestly, because we have Atraxa, we don't need that much removal. We just need to get our Atraxa on the battlefield, or even the giant Phyrexian Flesh Gorger on the battlefield. Both of those will kind of spell the end of the game because you're getting so much life link, you're doing so much damage that it doesn't matter if the opponent has creatures. So yeah, so we're running 4 of this. That's a removal for whenever we have something we really need to get rid of. But the rest of the time we're just trying to get our Atraxa. Right, I think the only thing I didn't mention too much was Kaito. Just a solid Planeswalker, draws us cards, and helps us discard our Atraxa when we need to. Gives us unblockable tokens to swing in with the Archpriest. Does everything. So a lot of these cards are really multifaceted, doing a lot of things, and it just makes me feel like the deck is pretty solid, pretty strong, because there's nothing that's like in a really niche situation that doesn't do something else useful. And the mana base, pretty standard. Takenuma and Otawara, of course, are nice, but nothing else too special going on there. All right, well, that is it for the #1 deck. Of course, we had to go with Dimir, of course. But honestly, this is not even a meme deck. I think this is a very solid deck. We know that Atraxa is really, really good. Definitely like tier 1.5 at least in standard. And I think with this new, Amonkhet and Archpriest, I think there's a chance it could bring it up to tier 1 because the reanimation is going to be that much more consistent. Yeah, so I can't wait to try it out in the early access event. That is starting pretty much after this video comes out, but you can catch me on the 14th, 6 a.m. Eastern, until the end of the event, about 7-hour stream over on Twitch. So I hope you guys will check me out there. And if you stayed this long in the video, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my future content. We're going to be posting the sweet new brews we're trying out on the ranked ladder. And there's going to be some honorable mentions and things like that, which you didn't see yet. So yeah, stay tuned for a lot more stuff to come. But yeah, that's it. Until next time, go out there, have some fun, and I'll see you.